Do they care if this fentanyl is going and killing lots of Americans and weakening the United States, when that's their main economic, kind of military, geopolitical rival?
So we've talked about the U.S. and we've talked about Mexico. There's another power player, which we've highlighted a little bit earlier with fentanyl, would be China. Obviously, there's been a lot of controversy about how much they're actually a role player within the fentanyl import. Obviously, there's been calls in the U.S. that they are the main player, but the CCP recently came out this week and essentially said that they have no background and they have no involvement in any of the fentanyl that's supplied to the U.S. Do you think that, for one, the CCP knows and has some coordination with the cartels trying to be able to kind of push this forward into the U.S. border? And two, is that how would we be able to handle that situation as well, seeing as we talk about great ideas of how to, whether it's, we look at militarization or we look at ways that we can, change the society and culture down there and in the US, but you have these other power players around the world as well who are looking into funneling what's essentially poison right through our southern border.
Yeah. So, first with China, it looks, from what I've seen, the evidence is that this stuff's coming out of China in a big way, and also by Chinese chemists in India, some other places. When I saw these statements by the Chinese officials, it's like complete denial. It wasn't like, oh, we're trying to crack down on it, but we were doing it. It was like, there is no fentanyl trafficking from China to Mexico. It doesn't exist. And I was kind of a bit knocked down by that statement. It's like with the guns. Like you say, well, US got responsibility with guns, and US will say, well, we're trying to fight this and blah, blah, blah. But it's not like there is no complete denial. And that kind of reflects a bit how this Chinese structure works. It's a very different political language. It's not like it's just like there is no trafficking. So how do you begin to start? Now, I don't know China. I don't know what their motivations are. I'm sure it's an authoritarian state, so they know this is happening. You get into this. It is the fact. Without getting too conspiratorial, do they care if this fentanyl is going and killing lots of Americans and weakening the United States, when that's their main economic, kind of military, geopolitical rival? Or just, you could flip it again, go back to the US. Do Americans care that much that guns are destabilizing Mexico and stuff? It's not happening right in their neighborhoods. It's difficult. This stuff gets away, but are there other motivations there? So Mexico, people start getting conspiratorial, like, oh well, the United States wants to destabilize Mexico, wants to weaken Mexico. That's why they're trafficking the guns down here. And I can get into Fast and Furious. I haven't mentioned Fast and Furious, which is also something which some very well-informed listeners might well know about and be questioning, where there was an operation by the ATF where they knew about these guns being trafficked to try and create a bigger sting, a bigger conspiracy case, and then ended up being involved, which makes it look like the US state is deliberately kind of arming these cartels, which kind of fuels conspiracies down here. So people are like, well, the Americans are deliberately doing this stuff to make Mexico weak. I don't believe that. I think it's actually various reasons why the United States is allowing these guns to go south. It's not all part of a big plan. With China, I don't know. I don't know enough about them inside, their motives, their players, but it's happening. To talk about fentanyl, I think, and again, fentanyl is a big game changer that's happened. To try and make some sense of fentanyl, I think also we want to bring crystal meth into the conversation as well. Crystal meth's huge in the United States. So we've seen a change in the drugs. The biggest drugs now being trafficked in the United States by the cartels. It used to be cocaine, heroin, marijuana. Now the biggest are fentanyl and crystal meth. We moved, first with marijuana and cocaine. With marijuana, you could say, well, people smoke it. Now we've kind of legalized it anyway. So that was kind of like, why are we fighting a war against marijuana? It didn't really make sense. I do believe in marijuana legalization. It hasn't solved the problem of cartels, but I do believe in marijuana legalization. Cocaine, it caused, crack caused a lot of damage. Also, the sales of it caused a lot of damage. But kind of cocaine is a bit more of a mixed thing. A lot of people take cocaine for recreation. There's a bit more of a kind of mix in there. Crystal meth and fentanyl do insane damage. It's also a change from plants to synthetic chemicals. Like marijuana, cocaine, heroin, they all came from, marijuana was a plant and you literally smoked a plant. Cocaine, you had the coca leaf. You went through a bit of a process, but it was kind of a bit closer to the plant, the coca leaf. Even heroin, a bit closer to the opium stuff. It was still kind of a chemical process, but synthetic stuff where you're creating and synthesizing chemicals at this level, it's a lot further away from any kind of natural thing there to these synthetic chemicals technology linked to the pharmaceutical industry. So they're kind of piggybacking off the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry creates, and China's obviously massive for this, creates a lot of these chemicals, and then we can take derivatives from chemicals and then make them into these things and sell them. And you've got an alternative pharmaceutical industry alongside the real one, which is, fentanyl, crystal meth. So it kind of gets deep into this stuff. I mean, the prices are crazy how cheaply you can buy some of these precursors for. I mean, so, you can buy some of these precursors. You might buy $1,000 worth of precursors and make $1 million worth of drugs. That's what these guys are looking at. That's why they're motivated to do this stuff. And the effects, I mean, you see, I used to know heroin addicts back in the UK when I was a teenager, and they were bad. You could talk to them. I was recently up in Tijuana talking to some people on fentanyl, on crystal meth, and these guys are zombied. These guys are zombified. I mean, this stuff's, I think, messing up their whole system way more. So how do we deal with this stuff? And this is kind of, I think, getting a bit into a kind of deeper issue. This is kind of part of maybe we've kind of become so removed from nature, so removed from our removed from nature, removed from communities, removed from family, all this kind of stuff. And then we end up with these people taking these chemicals. They're broken. They don't talk to their family. They got no community sense. They got no, and then they're taking these chemicals which are just like out there by this break off from the pharmaceutical industry. So it gets maybe some kind of deep issues about what these pharmaceuticals mean. But China's not a good faith player in this. Absolutely not.
When I was